Thank you, Robert, and I'll be exactly 5 minutes to share our contribution to framing the discussions today. The focus will be on humans, after we've been talking a lot about technology, and I'll encapsulate it in what we call the future of work. Because there's a unique trait in the so-called digital transformation era we find ourselves in. That's the simple fact that for the first time in the evolution of technology, it is the consumers, the citizen, the people, the workers, that massively adopted the technologies, like the cloud, mobile devices, social networks, before they found their ways into the corporate world. And it's not a secret to anyone in this audience that this massive adoption of these technologies, which now exponentially accelerates indeed, started with the younger generations, the millennials, followed by Generation Z. The next generation internet is in fact the internet of the next generation. The same millennials represent 50 to 60% of the global workforce already, so they are in the enterprise, in the public institutions, in the organizations already, redefining job contents and the ways of working. So we don't need to try and predict if and when this will happen, but rather how these organizations will need to adapt to it. At the same time, exponential evolutions of robotics and artificial intelligence have the potential to impact more than 50% of our jobs worldwide. And that's an average ratio between a high 70% in China and a low 30% in the UK. Actually, in the human capital trends in that we at Deloitte ran in 2017, 41% of companies responded that they had fully implemented or have made significant progress in adopting cognitive computing robotics within their workforce. And another 34% are in the middle of piloting programs. So these phenomena create a perfect storm, which we call the future of work. But that storm isn't easy to navigate. In the same study we conducted, only 17% of the executives globally report they were ready to manage a workforce of robots, people, and artificial intelligence. This is the lowest level of readiness we ever observed in monitoring human capital trends. Now, with all technology developments comes a world of opportunities. And beyond productivity, we see, and it's been mentioned earlier today, an opportunity to rethink work around something we call essential human skills. And whilst tasks are being automated, the essential human parts of work become even more important. Empathy, communication, ethical skills, persuasion, personal services. So technologies will boost productivity and allow workers to focus on human aspects of work. Now, this raises a very interesting design question for an organization. How can they achieve the greatest total value, balancing short-term and long-term consequences for themselves and for the workers? Now, there's no fatality for the workforce in the next generation internet era. We're far from a situation where organizations would have the binary option of replacing jobs or not. Actually, 77% of companies told us that they either are busy retraining people to use technology or will redesign jobs to take better advantage of human skills. Now, the future of work has a number of other traits, and it's also characterized by new human models, leveraging crowds and contract labor. So the question is, how can organizations, institutions, companies use an open talent ecosystem of crowds, contingent, and contract talent to increase quality, flexibility, but also their ability to scale up or down? Actually, the future of work refers to this combination of workforce augmentation through robots and artificial intelligence on the one hand, and crowds and contingent workers on the other hand. In this context, companies will need to reinvent what work really means. How the workforce is designed, how the workforce is trained or retrained, really. Now, when done carefully, we believe that automation and the use of crowds can have a positive impact on productivity, employee engagement, but also customer value. Now, from the network and the sentiment analysis run by RAI Search, the result of which I believe you will see after this presentation, they run a sentiment analysis on 650,000 messages exchanged over social media between November 2016 and April 2017. And in that research, the connection between work, internet technologies, and flexible arrangements seem very, very evident. Equally evident was the notion of supporting women employment, also entrepreneurships, with startup jobs becoming increasingly more attractive than open-end contracts with established companies. So we believe the future work to be a very important aspect of the next generation internet, or the internet for the next generation, and a challenge for the next generation of leaders and workers. We do plead for a positive attitude towards this challenge. We apply it to ourselves. You know, Deloitte is a global, people-only organization with 250,000 balance sheet employees. Now, we observe a slower growth of our payroll staff and a higher growth levels of open talent arrangements through contingent workers, associate contractors, and crowdsourcing platforms, for example. But as we look at many other organizations but ourselves, we see some elements of the future of work being very well understood by leaders, whilst others are in very emergent stage of maturity and readiness. This makes, we believe, this forum a perfect place and a very relevant opportunity to raise awareness and discuss the future of the Internet. Thank you very much.